You know, in the midst of the big chaos of life, yesterday was a bit of a chaotic day in my life as well. Just little things. But you know how the little things begin to drag you away from the focus of your life, what you want to be, about where you think you belong. Yesterday, somewhere during the day, I had gotten up. I had this beautiful breakfast, simple breakfast for me, oatmeal. That's my everyday go-to breakfast. So I had my oatmeal, and I had my centering prayer time, and everything was good and smooth. And I had come up into the living room, which is sort of in a semblance of some kind of order now, except for the boxes that still haven't been unpacked of the CDs from where they repainted that room. And who listens to CDs anymore anyway? But we're going to put them on the shelf, I think. And so I'm talking to Linda, everything's going well, and so then, our conversation doesn't end there. I follow her upstairs, and we're still talking, and the mailman comes. And, in my world, I have no big deal about the mailman, but my dog Reedy has something against all delivery people. Personally, she would like to kill them. And, I don't know if she really would, if she got outside the house, if she would just lick them and everything would be great. I'm not sure, but she sounds as though she might kill someone. So it's like very ferocious, scary German Shepherd. The German Shepherd side of her comes out. She's half German Shepherd, half Border Collie. And so in her zeal to protect our house, she broke something that she's already partially broken before, and she broke yet another piece of that. Well, I heard it break, and I heard it from upstairs talking to Linda, and immediately I was thrown into a certain level of chaos as I stomped down the stairs. Mr. formerly at peace 30 nanoseconds ago, to send Reedy into the basement, into exile for doing her job, but a job in a way I didn't appreciate. And so she's downstairs, I'm talking to her, I'm saying, "What are you thinking?" Like Reedy understands a word I have said to her. And so then this puts me in kind of an intriguing mood. I discovered a message on my phone that I hadn't noticed before, and it was from some folks who were using the mission house next door on Friday night. And something's wrong with the power at the mission house next door, and I didn't know what it was. And apparently Linda had gotten a message from Randy as well that some beeping was going on in the house, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? So I come over, Linda calls me and says something's going on, so I come over and look at, of course, magically I know that I'm going to touch all the breakers. They tried the breakers on Friday night, but I've got the power. I've got the power. In any case, I go to flip the breakers and just assume everything's going to work. Nothing changes. So we call Dominion Power, and I get their automated service, which is another delight, but the chaos is kind of building inside of me. I can just feel, and there are big things happening in the world, but this is just my little world where the chaos is sort of building. So we call Dominion Power. They call me back automatically 3 hours with their automated voice saying, "Are you at the place? If you're at the place where the power is out, press 1. If you're not at the place, press 2. So I pressed 2, and they said, "Well, when you get back to the place, check and see if it's back." But we fixed it. So I said, we're out for a walk with Reedy at that point in the afternoon. She's out of exile now. By this point, we've let her go. She's come back out. And we're taking a walk. And so we said, "You want to walk a little extra far? We're going to go over to the mission house." So we walk on over to the mission house. And no, it's not fixed. Dominion Power had said, it's fixed, but I don't know what they fixed, but they didn't fix the mission house. So we call them again, and I enter the phone number, that you can find your account. Nope, that's the wrong phone number. Okay, enter it again. Nope, that's the wrong phone number. Okay, enter it again. So then they put me through to a real person. Enter the wrong number 3 times in a row. You can talk to a real person. This is a lesson I've learned about the chaos of life. So I talked to a real person. I said, "Listen, she's very kind, gentle. Can you get the number off of the box for me?" And I said, "Sure, except I'm not wearing my glasses and all the numbers are tiny." So I go outside and look, and we're trying to figure it out. And she said, "Fine, I'll just tell them where to go." And I said, great, and you'll get a call later on that everything is working. And I thought, oh, okay, good. So Linda and I come home from the walk. We're already behind a little bit. So in our evening, we weren't planning on staying at the mission house so long. So now we're back at the house, and we're kind of catching up on our evening. And so I put together I don't know, variety of things happen. I don't get a call from them, so of course that's on my mind. Is the mission house working? Even the automated guys that say, oh yeah, we're fixed that kind of thing. She said, I'm sure they'll fix it. And then right before bedtime last night, Linda realizes that I have lost. Now, she didn't say I lost. She said we. But I have lost the tickets. Next week, we got tickets. What? I lost it, honey. Let's just be honest. You're very kind to use the royal we. But we have lost, we splurged next week. Our favorite movie of all time is Princess Bride. And next week at the Strathmore over in Rockville, we're going to, we've got VIP tickets. We splurged and got VIP tickets. They're going to show it live, and Carrie Elwes, who played Wesley, is going to be there. And we bought the VIP tickets, so we're going to get to hear his talk. We're going to get pictures taken with him afterwards, professional pictures, and his signed book, As You Wish. So I'm just like, woo! And we've lost the tickets. So I go to bed last night. I'd like to tell you how much sleep I got last night, but I can tell you, none. I wake up in the morning, it's like I'm starting today on the, Surfing Chaos series, and there's no surf involved here for me. The surfboard is somewhere gone. For all the picture that might be of the surfboarding guy, it's not up there because we chose not to use that particular image, but the surfboarding guy my surfboard's gone. It's over there. I'm sinking under the water. Yeah, that's not me. Let's get it straight. That's not me. Now, that wave might be my life from yesterday. That's not me. So I'm waking up this morning. I'm thinking, we're starting the Surfing Chaos series, and I have no surfboard at all. So I come downstairs to I wake up. It's 5 o'clock. I don't get up until usually 5:30, but wake up is really... It's a euphemism for I finally rolled out of bed because I hadn't slept really, because I'm worried about where the tickets are and how irritated I was at the dog and how that left Linda and I kind of we had a different approach to how we were going to treat that. The exile wasn't really the plan for some people, and there was for other people, and we won't tell you which one that was, but you already know because I told you I exiled her. So, I was already kind of stirred up. And so I'm getting up and I'm saying, I got to do centering prayer is how I start every morning. So I sat down in my chair, and I closed my eyes and I set my timer. And 20 minutes later, the world was a different place for me. The world was a different place for me because centering prayer brought me back to a different place. To a different place. Maybe I should have done centering prayer before we went to bed last night. Next time, I'll just look at her. She'll say, point to my centering prayer chair, and I'll go center. I want to read to you, as we begin the Surfing Chaos series, it seemed like a good place to begin. Hey, let's begin with God. Always a good place to begin when you're talking about centering prayer. And I'm not going to read you the entire first chapter of Genesis. If you look in your printed update, you'll notice at the bottom, I chose 3 different random translations of Genesis 1, and most of it is because nobody can quite agree on how to translate Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. And so I thought, let's put it out there because I have my own thoughts about it. The 2-year Hebrew scholar, man. I took 2 years of Hebrew. I know what I think. Let me read those first couple of verses to you. I happen to have the Common English Bible in my hand right now, so I'm going to read those to you, but we're going to talk a little bit about the context of these verses. When God began to create the heavens and the earth was without shape or form. It was dark over the deep sea, and God's wind swept over the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and so light appeared. God saw how good the light was. God separated the light from darkness. God named the light day and the darkness night. That was evening, and that was morning the first day. It goes on. Now, I want to fast forward from creation. Just a couple of, I don't know how long it is, from creation until the 6th century before Jesus was born. So about 600 years before Jesus was born. Our friends, the Israelites, which, is the whole story of what we would call the Old Testament. The Israelites have entered into a period of exile. And they're looking for comfort. They're living in absolute chaos. They had put their trust in the promised land. They had put their trust in the temple. They had put their trust in all sorts of other kinds of places. Other gods, if you will. Instead of recognizing that the temple just merely pointed to God, instead of recognizing that the land just pointed to God, they had put their trust in the land, in the temple, in the building itself. And now they're in exile, and they are in despair. They're hopeless. They've given up. Life has become absolute chaos for them. A heck of a lot worse than the dog breaking something and losing your Strathmore tickets and the Mission House power, which, by the way, is fixed. They've lost their whole compass. And that's when this particular story of creation came to the forefront. It was probably floating around out there for a long time. But originally, scholars believe that the Bible probably began more with the Garden of Eden story of creation. But in the 6th century, they realized they needed a God that brooded over the waters. That story meant so much to them because their God brooded over the waters. Now, I don't know what you know about water, but if you saw what it did to Houston, if you begin to see some of the images of what's happening all across the Caribbean and into Florida, water is a sign, an ancient sign of chaos. Absolute chaos, out of controlness. Blown out of the water craziness. So when they talk about the wind of God, the breath of God, the Spirit of God, which in Hebrew is the same word, brooding over those waters, that's where we begin to see that image of a God who is over the chaos. Only what's interesting about the word that's used here, the word that's used for brooding, hovering, is also the word that's used for cherishing, covering with the wings of. In Deuteronomy 32:11, just happens to be, there's this piece of an eagle, just like an eagle guards its nest and hovers over its young. Hovers over its young. It's the same kind of protective influence. Suddenly there's this hovering, cherishing, brooding, overlooking. There's this pause in chaos. This pause as God looks at the chaotic forces and prepares to bring out of the chaos order. Prepares to bring order. So, as I sat before God this morning, in what I attempted to have was absolute silence. And I will tell you, if you practice centering prayer, and I do, oftentimes twice daily. Yesterday, maybe I should have done it like 3 or 4 times. But when you sit in centering prayer, the job that you're trying to do is get rid of all your thoughts. You're trying to just sink down and let God do all the work on your heart, work on your mind, work on you without you getting in the way. Because you know what our mind does? It thinks of solutions. I'm ready to jump to a conclusion about how we're going to fix the Reedy problem. Jump to a conclusion about how we're going to fix the missing ticket problem. I'm going to jump to a conclusion about how my magical fingers are going to flip some breakers and everything is going to be right with the world. I'm going to fix it. And God is just brooding over the water, hovering, cherishing the water. So for sometimes just sitting with God, and I have to say, probably the first 10 to 15 minutes, my eyes are closed, I don't know, I didn't look at the clock, but the first 10 to 15 minutes of my centering prayer was just crazy chaos flowing inside of me. And suddenly, somewhere around 3/4 of the way through my 20 minutes, really was 25 minutes today of centering prayer, I felt a calm begin to come over me. And it wasn't a James calm. It was a peace that passes all understanding kind of calm that only comes in the face of chaos when we let God be God. Now that's really hard for me. I like being in control. I like being the God of my life. Little g. Not big G, little g. I like being the God of my life. I like knowing exactly what I'm going to do next and doing it. God has been trying to teach me, especially over the last 4 years of my life, how to just let God be God, because that's the most important lesson that you'll ever learn, is to let God be God. 4 years ago, we embarked on an adventure together. It was more like 7 years ago at St. James, we embarked on an adventure together. For those of you who are new to our community, relatively new, we used to have a building that's where that tall building is right now. That tall building that's being built right there, that's affordable housing on the west end of Alexandria. We sold our building because we felt like God was calling us out. Only I was sure I knew where God was calling us to, and it wasn't on the west end, it was Cameron Station. I was sure God wanted us there. I was just clear. The district was clear, probably the bishop was clear, I was clear, everybody was clear. But apparently God. I was in charge and told God where we were going, and God smiled. God smiled. Maybe God laughed hysterically. I don't know. Maybe. It's possible. So I had a plan. So we moved into temporary space, which was a little freaky for us and a little crazy. We lived in that temporary space for a while, and it truly was chaos. I felt a little bit like I was herding cats all the time, and I don't even like cats. I'm sorry. If you have a cat, if you're a cat person, great for you. I love wildcats. I love tigers. If they ate all the domestic cats, it'd be fine with me. Okay, see? I told you. I'm just admitting this is a fault of mine. I will admit it's a fault. Domestic cats account for a large number of songbirds being killed. A huge number. Huge. In any case, that's not an excuse. That's just my reason why I can justify, I love wildcats. So long and short is, it was crazy. It was crazy. But in the end, I learned an important lesson that maybe we should have stayed homeless for a while longer, except it wasn't God's plan. Maybe God knew better. God always knows better, by the way, just a heads up. While we were homeless, I was reminded, buildings aren't really what the church is. Buildings are not what the church is. It's nice to have a building. It's really a cool building. I love our reclaimed wood wall and our beautiful table that was handmade for us. I love it. But in the end, I love you. And God, this is what the community of faith is all about. It's making it through the chaos together, because as we make it through the chaos together, it takes us to a deeper place where we can stand before God and say, whatever you want, not what I want. And about the time I said that, listen, God, all right, if it's not Cameron Station, because we had people looking. We fired one set of realtors who wouldn't look good enough for us to get a whole nother set that looked even harder. Hard. I turned down this street one day, and our former neighbors, All Nations Church of God, were selling this church. Those for sale signs had been up for 2 days. They already had something like 4 offers on the building. I didn't think anything about it because I was going to Cameron Station, so I drove by. This is Wednesday. Thursday, all night. This is another one of those nights, but it was a good night of no sleep. When I woke up on Thursday morning and I said, what are you trying to tell me, God? I didn't eat anything that was spicy for dinner last night. What is burning in the pit of my stomach? So, I had some centering prayer, and then I went for my coffee that I normally have once a month with somebody. And that person is never late, and they were late. So I called my broker, and I said, well, find out what you can find out about Fillmore Avenue. He calls me back, want to see it? I want to see it? Sure. All the things fell in place. We bought the building. Now we're here. Great. This is, but this it required some chaos. So there's two things I want you to know about chaos. God wants to bring order out of chaos. I want you to know that. But the first thing is, sometimes we have to be in the chaos for a little bit. Sometimes we need the mix of chaos so God can create something new. I'm not fond of chaos. I can't stand chaos. For 3 months in our house,